Welcome to another episode of the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Lainey.
And we are back.
We back, baby.
Lainey, how you feeling today?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really great. A little tired, but such is life at this point.
Yeah.
Parenting, it's the summer. So that adds a different dynamic to life in our home.
Yeah. Summer is supposed to be like relaxing, but then for some reason, summer is actually the most exhausting season of our lives.
Right. We have one child in particular at our home who relies on us heavily for entertainment purposes. And so it's like you turn around and you always have a shadow there.
Yes.
Which is fun sometimes, but sometimes it's just like, dude, I need some space. Please go away.
You know the new Doechii song, like, somebody is watching me?
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
that's always.
That's
always somebody's watching.
That's his theme song right now, yeah.
Yep.
Well, today we're going to be talking about the why of foster care.
Yeah.
And I specifically our story, right? We talked a lot about the what, like how we live life, how we deal with, the troubles that foster care can bring, the joys that foster care can bring, all that stuff. We've dealt a lot with the what, but the why is very, very, very important.
Yeah. The why is what gets you through the hard times.
Exactly.
Like when the what and the how is just not working.
Which is usually what's happening.
Yeah, you got to fall back on the why. You have to remember your why in order to keep going through difficult things.
And you and I actually just came off a week and a half ago of a conference, a marriage conference actually for foster parents. And so we got to go and be poured into for a little bit. And
it was nice.
The opening session was reminding you of your why. And so we kind of left that just a little bit more full, just reminded of why we stepped into this journey and kind of gave us a little bit more fuel to continue, the fight of foster care and adoption and all the things that are happening in our home. So we're going to kind of tell our story of how we ended up fostering, why we stepped into this role, and why we believe that it is such an important thing in this world and an important ministry of the Lord that we get to do with our hands, our feet, our time, our home, our emotions.
Keep going.
Our physical well-being,
just everything.
Our finances, our everything. So we get to talk a little bit about that today. So Lainey, why don't you kick us off and kind of define your why, or kind of how we came about this together, and we can just have a conversation about it.
Well, we probably have different answers a bit.
We might,
I don't think, in a way, our why is the same, but I think we came to it in different ways.
Yeah, from different angles.
Yeah. I have a background in social work and working in foster care.
What does that mean?
So since college, getting my degree, to get my degree, we had to do field placements and internships and stuff like that. So even before I received my degree, I was working within the context of foster care. That's just kind of what I identified. And that's interesting when people even ask me like, oh, what drew you to working in foster care? I don't know. Like, I really don't know. And that's why I say...
It wasn't your plan from the get-go?
It was not. It really wasn't. And I didn't grow up knowing about foster care. I literally didn't know what a social worker was until I flunked out of nursing school. And I sat in the dean's office and I said, ma'am, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life now that you're kicking me out of your school. And she was like, have you ever considered social work? Yeah. And I said, what the heck is a social worker?
What is a social worker?
What is that?
I'm social. I want to do work with you. Is that what those two things are?
I wasn't social.
There you go.
What I think, sure, that probably speaks to the privilege of my upbringing and everything, that I literally didn't know what a social worker was. Yeah. And so as I started those classes and studying social work and marginalized people and demographics and things like that, I just felt really drawn. And that's why I always tell people when I tell this story is it had to have been the Holy Spirit. it had to have been God, because I had no other reason in my life to be drawn to this population.
Right.
But in taking classes with family violence and child abuse and things like that, I was just so drawn to the material, and wanted to learn more about it. I could not soak up enough information about what this meant. So getting into my field placements and working with Florida Baptist Children's Home at the time, which is now One More Child, doing case management, doing it's like children's homes. It was children's homes at the time, where our state doesn't really support children's homes as much as they want children in foster families. But just like doing all that work, I felt like it laid the groundwork and foundation of my life of, I'm always going to be doing this work in some capacity.
Right.
I'm just going to be, as an individual, I am going to be in the foster care world in some capacity. And before we got married, that was as a case manager in the system.
Yeah.
Which was
I remember those days when we started dating.
Honestly, I feel like that's how we knew that we were supposed to be married to each other, because you were able to tolerate me during the worst years of my life as a human being.
Well, because you step into the field, you go through all the classes and all the training and all the things, you get your degree in it, and you are ready to fight for people. You are ready to fight for the least of these, if you will.
Sure.
And you step into the world of it and the avenue to which you can flex that muscle in the professional work environment and get paid for it. And you step into it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. It's really hard. There are awful hours. There are, like, you're overworked. There's so many kids in the system.
It was the most difficult job I've ever had.
Yeah. And I just remember our first dating, like when we first started dating, and man, sometimes, to be honest with you, and I love you so much, and so hear me with
Speak
grace
truth.
when I say this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you were miserable to be around.
I was miserable.
I know you were.
I was a miserable human.
I know you were. I know you were. So I know that comes from, the position. It comes from the stress, and I felt like a stress sponge for you sometimes, and just was soaking up all that and trying to help with that. So you started off in as a social worker, and then your role and job in life kind of evolved from there into a different position.
I mean, once I stepped out of that job, that job put me on the front lines of the battlefield.
You got to see everything.
I saw everything. Yep. I saw every type of abuse. I saw every type of neglect of children. I saw parents that desperately loved their children and were fighting demons that were so hard for them to overcome. I also saw parents that were just like really crappy people, and I was like, dang, you shouldn't have kids.
Right.
And I also saw foster parents who really loved their children that were placed in their home and were fighting for them. And I saw foster parents that were like kind of lame. And I was like, dang, you shouldn't be foster parents.
You probably in it for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Like I saw so much, and I knew at that point, this is going to be part of my life. And so when I stepped out of that job, I knew, I was like, I need to do some mental and emotional healing from this, but I got to jump right back in this as soon as I'm ready from a different perspective.
The need's there.
The need is there. Once you see it, like once you open your eyes and see the need that this world is like placing on vulnerable children, you can't unsee it. Yeah. And then at that point, you have the decision to make. Am I going to look at these children who need protection and need to be fought for and need advocacy? And am I going to look at these families who are being torn apart because of addiction and abuse and violence? And am I going to look at that? At that point, you have a choice to make. Yeah. Are you going to turn a blind eye to it and walk in the opposite direction and live your comfy life? Or are you going to jump on the battlefield and like do something about it? Right. And so here we are. You made a career out of it, right? Yeah. I mean, also made like our entire personal lives about it. Right. Exactly. So where's your why come from? Because I know it's different. My why comes from a lot of different. There's a lot of different inpouring of just the need and the reason and all that stuff in my life from different
avenues, I'd say. I think for me, growing up, I always knew adoption was a thing. My mom was adopted from birth, and so that's part of our family story. And even just recently, in the past 10, 15 years, her finding her biological family and the story that's been uncovering from that it's been pretty crazy to hear.
So you've had a front row seat to like watching her.
Yeah. And this is even like she reached out, found her biological family before we even met. So we saw, that restoration of family, that reconciliation of relationship and things like that happening in our family with my mom. So that was just kind of an inpouring of like just the DNA of adoption and what it meant for our family and things of that nature to me. But I also grew up in church, and I knew just from studying God's word and reading about the life of Jesus and just being involved in church that adoption is an important thing. Right. It's like all of our story who are in Christ, right? The adoption of us to become children of God when we place our faith and trust in Him, right?
Right.
So I knew that was part of my story, just spiritually, but I also knew that there was a need just for adoption and foster care regardless in our area. And it became more and more evident to me when I met you. And when I came to the current role that I serve at the current church that I'm at, because adoption and foster care ministry were on the forefront of the vision for this church and for you. So I kind of stepped in having a little bit of a small background in that, but really developed a heart for it after I met you and after I took a job at this church.
I kind of like forced it on you in a bit.
Just a little bit.
I feel like anyone who's around me for any length of time is going to in some way start being infiltrated by what I care about.
All your friends are now foster parents now, so there's that. That's true. But again, I think if you look at this, it's what you said earlier. If you look at the crisis in our area and just in our nation in general, and you look at children being mistreated or neglected or things of that nature, and you have a choice to do something, I feel like, for me, it was a no-brainer. We have to do something, right?
Yeah.
We got to do something. And so this goes back to our age-old story of when we bought our first house and we moved in and we had a dog and a cat and, a 3-bedroom house, and we were occupying 1 bedroom of it. And the other 2 were just kind of sitting there, and we looked at ourselves and we're like, why? What are we doing? Like, we have open space in our home. We know that that there's such a need in our area for foster homes, and our church and you and your life and everything like that, and your career and profession. It's just, why wouldn't we do something at that point? Right.
Did you at any point feel like I probably, I don't remember specifically, but I probably was the first to bring up the topic in conversation of like becoming foster parents.
Yeah.
And did you feel at any point like I knew
the conversation was going to come at some point. Yeah.
But did you feel like you were having to be dragged into it, or because I'm imagining some spouses, obviously one spouse brings it up first.
Yeah.
So the other spouse who isn't thinking about it, like, how did you get on the same page with me? How did we get to the same page, and what was that process like? Yeah,
well, I think it's like any decision that we make in our marriage, right? Of like, I bring stuff to you, you bring stuff to me, and we have a decision to make together if we're going to do this or not, right? And I always knew the conversation was going to come. It was just a matter of time. and before you got your claws into me and you...
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Put the thoughts in my brain that I needed to make a decision. But it's one of those things where, you brought up the conversation to me. I don't remember how the conversation came about.
Yeah.
Nor do I particularly care about how the conversation came about. But I never felt like I was being dragged into like... Dragged into something that I didn't want to do.
I wasn't dragging you.
No, I'll praise the Lord. But I never felt like this was something that was gonna take too much of me. I don't know. I'm a pretty easygoing guy as it is, so you could pretty much convince me to do anything at this point. But it was never one of those things where I'm like, okay, I really got to take a second look at this, third look at this. Obviously, we prayed about it together before we did those things and made those decisions, but it was never, there was never a check in me that was like, hold on, like pump the brakes here. We're moving too fast. Maybe this isn't a good idea sort of thing, right?
Yeah, you said something that I wanted to sit on for a second because I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
In that you said, I don't remember like a specific conversation that we had about this. I don't remember a specific epiphany or point that we were like, the lights from heaven shone down on us and was like, oh, you should be foster parents. Like that never happened. Yeah. But I think that's really important because I wonder how many people are sitting there like waiting for that epiphany moment. And they're like, all right, like as soon as God speaks to me and tells me I'm going to do it. Like
if I open my Bible up today and there's a verse about adoption, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Right? And we didn't have that moment. I don't even remember the conversation at any point where we like decided we were going to do this. Yeah. It was just a thread that was woven throughout our relationship and our life. Yeah. Like it was just something that we were, it was, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just on the subconscious all the time that this is kind of what we were passionate about. Yeah. And so through conversations with other people, just candid conversations, we would talk about foster care. Right. If we met foster parents or former foster parents, we just asked them questions about what was that like. And then it did get to the point after about a year of us being married where we were like, okay, so when do we really start?
I remember we had the timeline discussion. Yeah. Like it was never a, should we do this discussion? It was like a timeline of like, when should we, when is right? And we looked at each other again and we're like, there will never be a perfect time, right? There will never be a time where our lives are just settled, we're in routines, we're excited, we're ready, and everything is just perfectly set up to receive kids into our home. Right. I don't think that time ever exists, right? But we did know that the call was put on our heart by the Lord to do this. So I remember we decided now, like we got to do this now. And the funny thing was the now for us was in 2020 when the world shut down.
Well, we didn't know the world was shutting down.
Yeah.
We had been married for a year, I think, maybe even less.
No, it was about
a year and a half.
Yeah.
We got married in 2018.
Yeah.
So, we, right? Yeah. So we had, oh man, I lost my train of thought on that, being married. Oh, we were married for like a year and a half. Yeah. And we were not ready to have our own children. Yeah. We like didn't really want our own kids yet. Yeah. So we were like, let's do foster care. This was my thinking. I don't know if you were there.
This is funny. Yeah.
So they tell you that foster care is like 12 months to permanency.
Yeah.
It's never 12 months to permanency. Yeah. Let's just be really clear on that.
There might be a case or two out there, but no, all of them.
So 12 months to permanency. So you kind of have this like year time frame in my mind heading into it. And so I was like, how perfect would it be?
Yeah, in our planning.
Me telling God, how perfect would it be, God, if we did foster care for a year?
Just a year.
We took a case. We saw that case to permanency. We sent those children back to their mommy and daddy. And like they lived happily ever after. And then we could start having our own kids afterwards. It was like, great. We did the thing.
Check mark.
It was a check mark. It was like, all right, I feel God telling us we have to do this. I'll do it for a year. I'll check that box that I did like a good ministry thing. Yeah. And then we'll start our own family and it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
I still tell God, I was like, that would have been the perfect plan.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, we walked into it thinking, and here's where your thoughts are always, set to the side when you enter something that's messy.
Yeah.
And something that the Lord, foreknew before it ever happened, right? And so our thought process was, like you said, seasonal. Like I said, we'll be a seasonal foster parent.
Yes, I really thought it was. I really did think it was a season.
We walked in, we had conversations, you and I, about how we want our home to be a transition home.
Yes.
Like we want to be a safe place, a secure place, a loving place for kids who are going to step in and who we were going to send back.
Yes.
Like this is the perfect place to do it.
I was so ready to send those little kids back home.
Yep, exactly. And it didn't turn out that way.
It did not. And I just find it so ironic. And I will probably never be able to explain God's ways in this our hearts were so set on being a temporary home.
Yeah.
Incredibly set on being a temporary home.
Yeah.
Adoption, while adoption was in our mind, like down the road, we might do like a private adoption or something.
Sure.
It was never in my mind that we were going to adopt children that we fostered.
No.
Literally never crossed my mind.
Right.
And so the fact that the first case that we took ended up becoming an adoption case within they moved in May, and then by August the goal was changed to adoption, threw me for a little bit of a whirlwind.
Oh, for sure.
And I was like, wait, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Right. But even when the circumstances change, the why doesn't change, right?
Of course.
And
Yeah.
So still the same, calling that's put on our heart by the Lord.
Yeah.
To protect, serve, love, keep safe, and all those things.
That's what has kept us grounded this whole time.
It's evolved a little bit. The why has evolved a little bit, right? But it's still at its heart, and the premise of it is still the exact same.
Yeah.
Rock solid.
The why of why we do foster care, I think, can be just summed up really simply in that, first of all, God has commanded us to care for the orphans.
Yeah.
And secondly, because there are vulnerable children who need a safe adult to step in and protect them and provide them with security and love for however long they may need it.
Yeah.
And to help restore children and families. Like that is the why. And that why will always exist.
Yeah.
Until Jesus comes again and makes all things new. That why is going to be there.
Yeah. And I think for any foster parents who are out there watching this, any adoptive parents who are stuck in the what and the how.
Yes.
And are struggling. Or maybe you're just, in a great place right now and life is good.
Yeah. That season also exists.
Foster and adoptive kids. Yeah, that does exist. Remembering the why and using that as fuel for the what and the how is so important. So important. You cannot forget the why. So you need to be able to remind yourself of the why as often as you can. I know for us this past week and a half, whenever we went to this marriage conference, it's been a season, man. It's been a season for us.
It has been
in our home. Not like the worst season we've ever experienced, but just to the point where we're like, I don't want to be a parent anymore.
This is a safe space.
Yeah, right. Not that I've ever would ever do that, but
those thoughts are normal. Like, what the heck did I do?
Yeah, sometimes you're just like, I need 3 hours where I can just go out and do something without my kids around, because there's just so much chaos.
Yep.
But I think for us, it was such a season that, a week and a half ago, whenever it was, sitting down and being reminded from the Bible, being taught our why and rediscovering our why was such an empowering thing for us, I believe. And again, we mentioned it at the beginning, but you go home and you're like, man, just a renewed sense of purpose.
Yep.
A renewed sense of affection for our children, right? I missed them that day.
Yeah.
I wanted to go home and be with them.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thankful that we have avenues to be able to be reminded of the why.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we often get stuck in seeing the outcomes.
Yeah.
And the outcomes are not always what we are wanting them to be.
Sure.
And I think that's where seasons start getting really tough, because we're like, okay, they're not developing as much as we thought they would. They're not hitting those success markers the imaginary success markers that we put in there. And,
reasonable ones too.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I start getting stuck, is like, you're not meeting my unrealistic expectations. And I'm focused so much on outcomes. And one of the speakers he made such a comment. He was like, if you looked at us as a foster family based on outcomes, and if we were licensed as a foster family based on our outcomes of the foster children who have come through our home, like, you would literally never license us.
You'd take away our license.
You would take away our license immediately. And I was rolling laughing, because I was like, that's so true. Like, you would not license us as foster parents if you based our licensure on the outcomes of our children becoming these grandeur healed children.
Well, I would even add to that just the outcomes of relationship too. I think that's the thing that I struggle with is like you're we're a little bit different in the way that we interact with our children and just views on life and stuff like that sometimes.
Yes.
I was struggling with the relationship with my kids of like seeing me as dad, as father figure, things of that nature. I mean, that's an outcome in and of itself.
Oh,
right? And so, you walk into that marriage conference with, man, my kids think of me as a roommate, as someone who just brings home groceries for them to eat, and someone who provides them entertainment and is a little bit funny at sometimes, right? But you're like, no, I want you to see there's so much more to this, right? And so I'm walking in with a heavy heart of like, man, I just want my kids to love me. I want my kids to feel safe with me, but also see me as dad. And sometimes that's a unrealistic expectation for me to put on them to force them to do, right?
Right.
And so being reminded of the why is kind of like levels that a little bit. It's like, just like, you know what? I'm not in this for myself.
Yeah.
It's not for me. It's for my children. To grow up, to feel loved, to feel safe, and to know who Jesus is, right? And I think, when you have that why there, it makes things a lot better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because his point was, regardless of outcome, the why stays the same.
Always.
And the command for obedience stays the same.
Yep.
And the requirement for our faithfulness stays the same, regardless of outcome.
Absolutely.
It was such a good reminder. Yeah.
Such a good reminder. So any foster parents out there watching this, any adoptive parents out there watching this, any parents watching out there that are biological parents, we want to just encourage you to take a moment at the end of this podcast to remember your why, why you are in the position that you are. Be reminded of that and use that as fuel to go and continue on with purpose to what the Lord has called you to do.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching this episode. This has been Matt
and Lainey
with another episode of the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast. We will see you next time.